Welcome to the most overrated, underappreciated, most viewed, underviewed podcast of all time. Welcome to the Prince of Fresh Air. I'm, of course, your host, the beloved, the most charismatic man in entertainment. And, we are back. We have another banger episode. It's going to be a great conversation. I'm looking forward to having this conversation with this next guest because he's killing it in Hollywood. His career is going well. He's a busy man, booked and busy. And I'm just glad he's taking the time out to come on the Prince of Fresh Air podcast. Now, you might be wondering, who is this guest? And you might recognize the face, but, this is the Prince of Fresh Air podcast, so we don't do anything average on this side. So I'm going to show you my backhand real quick. Check this out, right? My next guest, he's an actor. He's a model. He's a radio host, and he's a sports psychology consultant. And he's also a professor as well. That's his day job. But there's the other side to him. He is booked and busy, over 25 credits, especially in film and TV. Some of his notable work include King Richard, starring Will Smith. And currently, you could catch him in Challenger, starring Zendaya. Star-studded cast, amazing movie. I'm truly excited to have this guest on. Please help me introduce the man playing Finn in Challenges, Jake Jensen. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, welcome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, of course, it's my pleasure. Your publicist, Steven, amazing guy. Shout out to him for reaching out to me. And I'm just grateful to have someone like you, your caliber, because you don't need to come on this podcast, but it's the most charismatic experience, so I get it.
Well, I actually had to come on because once I saw what awesome hair you have, I was like, I've got to meet this guy. So
I appreciate that. I got to tune it up a little bit, but tell that to my mother. She don't agree. Anyway, this is not about me. This is about you. So, a lot of people was asking me about you. You're gonna have him on a podcast. How was it working with Zendaya? But before we get into that, let's get into you, because in order to get to the top of the acting mountain, you have to start somewhere, right? And so for you, I noticed, and this actually goes into your role in the movie Challenges, but you were NCAA Division I tennis player at Utah State. So what was that journey like then? And then how does a tennis player get into acting and modeling?
That's a good question, and I get asked that a lot. I think, as different as they are, there's still a lot of parallels between sport and any performance, and acting is a performance. And I think acting fulfills some of that need I have to perform and to get the adrenaline rushing. I mean, even just a scene I did the other night in acting class, it was like I was in that zone. I felt like I was killing the scene, and there was an adrenaline rush, and it's different than tennis or sports, but it fulfills a lot of the same needs for me. So I think, after I finished college tennis, I played a little bit on the pro circuit, the challenger circuit. I think I was looking for something long-term and sustainable that would kind of meet that need for me to be performing and to be working on a craft. And it's been a great thing for me to have.
Oh, that's tremendous. And one of the things I kind of noticed too, I was reading some of the media stuff you was doing for Challenges, and your publicist was giving me some things. And one of the things I saw that, when you was in Atlanta and Miami, you had a successful career as a model and commercial work. And even now you're still doing all of that stuff. So for you, how was it, going from, tennis in college to now you're making a livelihood in the entertainment industry, and, a business that is not exactly easy to kind of make a sustainable living until a certain point in your career. So for you, how has that journey been, doing that and then transitioning over to TV and film?
Well, I think, modeling was the first step for me. And I think that was less intimidating to jump into than acting. It certainly takes skill, and I'm not putting models down at all, but it's a different skill than acting. I mean, there is an acting element to it, but I was fortunate to work a lot pretty early on as a model, especially in Miami. I booked a lot of stuff there. I booked a Fiat commercial early in my career there, nice. Which I was on. It was a commercial, but it was I was on set with Charlie Sheen, Pitbull, and it was a huge production. It was when Fiat cars first, they were starting to sell them in the U.S. So there was these whole the Fiat immigrating from Italy to the U.S. And it was like an 8-day production, huge set. actors, and that really gave me the bug. It was like, I want to be an actor. And I think for me, the modeling and then commercial acting was a great stepping stone to then move more into film and TV when I came to LA. But I was used to being on big sets, even though it was commercial, I was still, on set, taking direction. I learned a lot from being on set of commercials, which then helped me as I made the transition to film and TV.
Yeah, I think, a lot of, especially actors, I think sometimes we kind of forget that, commercial work is a sort of, because let me break this down easily. TV and film, a lot of people view separately than commercial work, which I understand because it's two different mediums, but it's the same thing. You get the experience with the big, the set pieces. You get to work with 100 people on set, and that's something you don't get used to if you don't do it often. You don't have that experience. So, for you, when you moved to LA, because I lived in LA for 5 years, when you first moved there, how was your career going there? Because I noticed when I first moved there, it wasn't hard to get an agent and stuff, but it's the talent pool and the people you're competing with. You're not just competing with up and comers now. You're competing with the celebrities, the working actors, the people you may not recognize as a Brad Pitt, but they're making all their money on that. So for you, was that a big challenge going from a successful career in Miami to now in LA where the talent pool is a lot bigger?
Yes, it was definitely very intimidating. I realized quickly that I needed to get immediately into workshops, acting, classes, training, because the level of competition in terms of acting was just nothing like I'd ever experienced. I was fortunate. My second month in LA, I booked a national SAG commercial with AT&T. So that helped in the sense I was like, okay, I know I can at least continue to book, print and commercial work. And that took some pressure off because it was like, okay, I can be successful here commercially. And that helped me get an commercial agent right away. But definitely for TV film, it was like, I don't have the credits, but I also don't have the experience and training. And so I better work my tail off to get to try to play catch up, because it's very, it's, as you lived in LA, it's there's so many thousands and thousands of actors, and a lot, and the majority of them I felt like had more experience than I did at that time. So I definitely, it was intimidating.
So, let's not keep the people waiting. Now, I'm gonna ask you about some of the work, especially challenges that's out right now, and people can currently watch it in movie theaters as we speak. But has anybody ever told you you look like Tyler Mane?
That's one I have not gotten.
No.
No.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I was thinking about that. I remember him and X-Men. I forget which one when he was Sabretooth. I was like,
Yeah.
you kind of look like him a little bit.
Interesting.
But that's a compliment. That's
You know who I get a lot is Michael Hall. That's Dexter. That's the one I get all the time.
Yeah. But the hair, you know what? You got a long hair, so I could see it if the hair is kind of back. But Tyler Mane, I'll give you a pass for that too.
Yeah, I can see that.
But enough chit chat. A lot of people want to hear not about your experience on challengers and stuff. But before we get into that, I want to ask you about King Richards, the movie starring Will Smith. Now, spoiler, I'm a big Will Smith fan, so I gotta ask you. But how was that experience? Was that like your first? Because, like I said, you have a lot of credits, a lot of experience, but working on a big set like King Richard with a big name like Will Smith, was that like the biggest role for you up until this at that point?
Certainly the biggest film that I had booked, no question. And I actually had booked a larger role, and then COVID hit, and they dropped that role from the film. Then they offered me a smaller role, which I ended up shooting, which was cool, but then it didn't make it into the final edit. So that was kind of a roller coaster, but I still got to shoot a scene. And Will Smith was not in the scene. Well, I was actually on the phone with him, so he was in the room. But he took a huge producing kind of role in that film as well. So he was very much, he wasn't the director, but he was very much hands-on, directing, helping to direct. So it was just, interesting to see him working, but they were on a real time crunch. So everything was, I mean, my scene, usually, you'd shoot like 6, 7, 8 takes. They shot like maybe 2 or 3. And my scene was with Tony Goldwyn from,
Oh, of course.
Scandal is what he's probably most famous for. But so it was cool to get to work with him because he's a well-known actor in his own right. And then Will Smith's in the room directing, and it was, again, it's one of those experiences, obviously disappointing not to make the final edit of the film, but just that experience of being on a huge set with, Oscar winning or Oscar level actors, and to see Will Smith, it was in action, was really cool.
Yeah, so let me ask you, what was the nerves? I asked you this because I recently had another act on, but he's also an athlete, and he got to work with Jared Padalecki on CW's Texas Walker. And one of the things I'm intrigued by, not only as an actor, but as someone who's passionate about this business, what is for you, what was that experience like? Because to go from, as someone who's gotten to meet and work with people of high caliber in this industry, to go from a short film to now you're on the set with these big names, now you got a lot of budget behind it, you're on a time crunch. Were you shocked? Were you nervous? Or was it kind of one of those things where you took the opportunity, you was prepared, and you was ready to get to work?
Yeah, I mean, I think I felt like I had paid my dues in a sense of working really hard on my craft, on my acting, that I deserved to be there. And you also realize, these are amazing actors and amazing people, but they are human beings, and it's yeah, I want to learn from them, but I don't need to be intimidated by them. And I also think, I had been on set as a commercial actor, like I said, with Pitbull and Charlie Sheen. And so even before being on a set of a big movie, I think, again, that's where, having worked commercials with some of these bigger names, it was like, okay, yeah, I mean, I respect them, and I look up to them, but I'm also, in a sense, one of them when I'm on set with them. So I think that helped a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely a mentality switch, because a lot of people, it's kind of hard to kind of break that mold when you're sitting across or you're working with someone of a high caliber. It's kind of one of those sink or swim moments where you're starstruck, but you also gotta work.
Yeah,
There's a budget, there's a production got to shoot. Now we're talking about budgets and we're talking about major movies, and it just came across my mind. You have a movie out right now, and you have a big part in it. Now we're going to talk about Challengers for a second. Challenger stars Zendaya, produced by Zendaya. Also stars Josh O'Connor and Mike Faist. Three of the biggest names in entertainment industry right now. But for a lot of people, they don't know what goes on behind the scenes. So before we get into the experience working on that and everything, when you got the call for this, because we all know a lot of these movies have a working title, so you don't know exactly what the production is. When you got the call, I saw, and I was reading that you was talking about you was on your way to LAX when your I think your manager, your publicist called. When you got that call, what was that feeling like for you?
I had auditioned a couple months earlier for it, and I felt like the audition went great, but then I hadn't heard anything. And as an actor, you just have to kind of forget about it and shrug it off. So when I got the call, I don't want to say surprised, because I had felt like I'd done great on the audition, but just I thought they would probably already booked the role because it had been a couple months. So I mean, I was beyond excited, and it was interesting because I quickly called my manager, and I'm like, I'm flying out right now. Would they be able to fly me from? I was flying to Salt Lake City, Utah. Could they then fly me from Salt Lake to Boston, or do I need to stay in LA? And they checked, and they were like, oh yeah, they can fly you from anywhere. So I ended up still flying to Salt Lake, saw my parents for a day, and then they flew me from Salt Lake to Boston. But it's pretty cool.
That's an amazing thing. And that's something that I've always been told, starting this industry, is you never know when they're gonna call. So that's one of the biggest things too. And that's rewarding as an actor too, because in your mind you moved on, you're waiting for the next thing.
Yeah.
Damn, now you're getting a call and you get to work on a big set with a lot of people attached to it. It's pretty cool. So before we get into actually working on challenges, let me ask you about the audition process. a lot of people don't realize the amount of work and preparation that goes into just auditioning. So for you, when you was actually auditioning for this, did you have any clues in Josh Connor, Mike Fast? Did you know they were attached to this project at that point?
Yeah, you know what? That's a great question. I knew it was a huge film, and I think, if my memory is correct, I knew that Zendaya was attached, but I don't think I knew Josh O'Connor or Mike uh, Fast was attached to it at that point. I'm pretty sure Zendaya, I knew that she was attached to the project. And I think Luca Guadagnino, the director, I think those were the two that I knew were attached. But I definitely knew it was going to be a big movie.
Interesting. Okay, so let's get into it. And before we get into that, Tom Holland, I'm sorry, but hey, Jake, if you got Zendaya's number, just no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No,
I'm kidding. So you get the call. You're flying out to Boston. You get ready to shoot this amazing production. What is the feeling for you? Because honestly, I'm actually kind of curious to work on a big movie set like this. People don't realize how intensive, how time constrained, how much goes into it. So for you, getting the script, having to memorize the lines, getting in character, was that about the most intense part for you, or was it the actual filming part?
I think, the nice thing is I pretty much knew because sometimes they don't give you the actual scenes but in this case, the audition was the main scene that I shot. So I already had prepared it for the audition. So that was nice. I hadn't read the full script yet. And that's something that I did, right as soon as I had got it booked, they sent me the script. But just going back to, they treated me like a movie star. So, I got picked up in a limo at my parents' house. They flew me first class to Boston. They picked me up in a limo at the Boston airport. I think they took me directly to a fitting downtown Boston, and then right to the hotel where Zendaya and all the actors and director and everyone was staying. So, it was like, it was really amazing experience just to feel like to be treated like a movie star. It was fun.
Yeah, Jake, I gotta admit, you're making me jealous. I wish I got a limo. But that is actually one of the coolest things. And so let's break it down. Challenges. I believe it's still out in movie theaters right now. But at the time, I know the writer strike kind of got involved. The acting and writing strike kind of impeded on production time. Was that for you when that happened? Were you completely done filming, or did you have to keep going back and film your stuff?
Yeah, we had completely we were done filming. What it interfered with, it was supposed to be released about 6 months earlier at the Vienna Film Festival, and then, or not Vienna, what's this? The Canal City.
Is it Cannes? Cannes?
It wasn't Cannes in France. I can't believe I'm forgetting this right now. It's the city in Italy with all the canals. Venice, the Venice Film Festival. My gosh, I was just there last year. I can't believe I'm getting old, I guess. But what it did is it was supposed to be released in fall of 23, and it ended up getting pushed to April of 24. So this year. So that was the biggest change, is just when it was released. We had already I believe all of post-production and everything was already done by the time the strike hit. So it really just interfered with the release date.
Interesting. So, let's just bring it back a little bit. Now you're on set, you're filming. And I was reading an article that you had done. I'm forgetting the actual article, the name, but you was talking about how some of the cast members were not as quick learning tennis, and that's your proficiency right there. And you did say Zendaya picked it up pretty well. So shooting those type of scenes, the tennis scenes and stuff like that, how cool was it to work with them and maybe bring your expertise to the scenes as well?
Yeah, I've coached tennis. I've played tennis my whole life, so I can immediately see like if the grip is wrong in terms for certain shots. And I think overall, they did an excellent job in the film of making it look very believable that these were pro tennis players. And they had Brad Gilbert, who's a celebrity tennis coach. You know, he's coached some of the top players in the game: Coco Gauff, Andy Roddick, and others. So he was really the expert on that. So, but it was fun because I got to spend a lot of time with him for a couple of days and just pick his brain and talk to him. And I didn't really take an active role in obviously giving the actors tips because that was Brad Gilbert's job. But just to be there, in the room with them and hear their discussions and see them out there on the court working was really, obviously as a tennis fan, it was fun to see that.
Yeah. So what do you think of your character, Finn Larsen? You have an intense locker room scene. And you're one of the top guys on the circuit. So just talk about a little bit about your character and why, like, the significance of your role towards the movie.
Yeah, there's another moment where Zendaya's character is scouting out my character, Finn Larsen. So they don't actually show me, but they show on a screen like Finn Larsen ranked, 240 in the world or something, and she's looking at his results because she's, as a good coach, she's preparing for her husband Mike's character to play mine probably in the semifinals, I think, of the tournament. And there was a few more small scenes in the film where my character appeared, and again in final edits are not there, but that's very typical of the challenger circuit. Is you get guys that are super good players, but they're either getting a little older or they're younger coming up, where they're still on any given day could beat almost anybody in the world, but just the consistency of it day in and day out. So I think Finn Larsen, 240 in the world, some people may go, well, that's not that great. That's still phenomenal. Out of the entire world, you're, top, 200, top 250 in the world. But I think that really represents that challenger circuit. Easily his character or a character like him could have been, playing the US Open a year earlier, and it's just either injuries or getting a little bit older. It's just right. It's a really demanding sport, and your tennis ranking, if you don't defend your points from the year before, your ranking can drop like a brick. So let's say you won a tournament one year. If you don't win that tournament the next year, your ranking is going to just plummet. So it's a really so I think his character, even though it's not like a long scene or in that many scenes, it does really represent that whole like challenger circuit and what it's like out there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now let me ask you, not only as an actor in the movie, but as a tennis guy, let me ask you about this, because when challenges came out, everybody kept talking about the love triangle with Zendaya, Josh O'Connor, and Mike Faist. What would you say to people who have never seen the movie and only think this is about a threesome romance? How would you tell someone this is not what it is? This is actually about tennis, and this is something that you should watch and actually you would enjoy.
It's interesting because I think some people are like, "Oh, I don't want to watch it because it is only a tennis movie," and then other people are like, "I don't want to watch it because it's not enough." But I think that's what makes Challenger brilliant, is for tennis fans. Like, it really is does a great job of showing how challenging it is to be out there, no pun intended, but on the Challenger Tour. But it also is a film that you don't have to be even a sports fan, because there is so much complexity of relationships and human nature, and the fact that like or tennis becomes this metaphor for love and relationships and really life. And so that's where I feel like it was so much more than just a sport movie, but it has enough sport or tennis in it that I think it really appeals to a wide range of people when they give it a chance.
Absolutely. And fun fact, you don't know this, I actually worked at a tennis facility for a few years. I worked at Sport Time. I don't know if you know Sport Time. It's here in New York City. Sport Time is a big tennis club here.
Yeah.
So I got a little practice on the tennis court myself. I've been told I hit like Serena Williams, but I play like a girl. So I might need some tips after this. So
all right, anytime.
We'll talk. Now, people have been asking me, it's been something that I've mentioned. So people want me to ask you, what was it like working with Zendaya? What was it like working with Mike Faist and Josh Connor? Like, what was the experience like for you as an actor?
Well, the days that I was on set, Zendaya was in producer mode, not actor mode, because she was a producer on the film. And I was incredibly impressed to see. I mean, she's a great actor, but she's also, I think, just a very savvy businesswoman. She's incredibly professional. And to see her in that, that not director, but in that producer role was really interesting. So she was working hard when I was on, the days that I was on set. She was very friendly, but very professional. So she didn't, we weren't just like hanging out on off time. She was like in full producer mode all day those days. Josh O'Connor, though, is who I got to know a little bit better than the other actors because he was in my scene. We shot, it was a good like hour outside of Boston. So I rode in the van right next to him. So we were talking. I was actually telling him how to score a tie break in tennis because he wasn't sure how to score. And I'm like, dude, this is like the main, like a huge part of this movie is it comes down to this tie break and the drama of that. So I got to school him a little bit in the scoring and tell him how to score a tie break. But I got to know him better, and then really saw Zendaya more in, again, producer mode. And then Mike was actually working on his tennis game on the courts the days that I was shooting. So that was I basically saw him out there working on his form, but I didn't get to know him very well.
So let me, as we kind of wrap up about challenges again, great movie. I got a chance to watch it last night. So I went into it thinking, oh, this is a love triangle because that's all I saw on TikTok, social media. Was actually a good movie. And I think people would be surprised if they haven't watched it. That is actually a good movie. It's not just about love and, sex and all that stuff. It's really about a lot more than that. But for you, just as an actor question, which one was more tense? Was it just doing the dialogue scenes or was it actually doing action stuff? Because I know there's some there's always choreography that goes with it. Which one was the hardest for you? I'm not saying that you couldn't do it, but which one was more challenging?
Luca, the director, and I don't know if he does, I assume he does this on most of his films, but he is very meticulous of walking the actors through all of the physicality of a scene. And he did not shortchange that at all. He walked us through it a little bit the day before we shot and then took a good, I don't know, hour or two so everything was fully choreographed in the sense of the action. And I think, I don't think that's always the case. But in this, he certainly took the time for us for my main scene. And that took a lot of pressure off because I felt like we got enough rehearsal in that we could still be spontaneous, but didn't have to overthink the physicality too much. I think for me, it was, I was trying to do a Scandinavian accent. So just like staying in that mode and wasn't really remembering my lines. It was more just really, staying in character we shot, I don't know, 30 takes probably. Wow. So people don't realize how much goes into these even, relatively short scenes. It's like, wow, there's so much. But I felt I think Luca did a great job of just making sure we all felt very ready and prepared. And he was very, like he told me, he's like, you're really funny, which that really loosened, like that helped so much. I wasn't trying to be funny, but I guess he thought I was, but I was like, okay, if the director's complimenting me, then I'm doing something right. So right. I would have, if he had been like yelling at me or something, it probably would have been a little different, but that really like loosened me up and I felt totally comfortable on set.
So film is wrapped. Everybody, most of the actors getting ready to go home. What's the feeling like now that the adrenaline is pumping? You're done. Everything now is just going. It's a waiting game. You're waiting for editing and waiting for the official launch date and everything. What is the emotions like after all of this is done?
Well, I know for like the day that I finished shooting in Boston, we wrapped on that location, but I know like Zendaya and Mike and Josh were headed, I don't know where, Atlanta or somewhere to finish shooting. So they were not wrapped yet. But for me, I went back to LA. They flew me back to LA, and I think as an actor, a little bit the same as like with auditions. You do the project or you audition, and then you just have to go, okay, the rest of it's kind of out of my hands now. It's in the hands of the editor. It's in the hands of production. I'm just going to move on with my, my career and not get too caught up in the rest. And I think you almost have to do that or you'd go crazy.
Yeah, it's a very complicated love relationship, right? Because it's 1 second you're getting treated like the movie star, the big time or the big name, and then
Yeah.
now you're going back to your ordinary life, and it's for some people it's not a big deal, but for a lot of actors, it's the job that you're doing right now. You never know when the next one is coming, so you're kind of just living in the moment. So it's just for me, not just as an actor, but just as a person. Like, what is the emotions like when you're going back to LA? You have to go back to your regular life now. And the movie star life is over temporarily. It's always a fascinating, thing. So the movie comes out. Did you do any of the press release or go on the media tours with them, or?
You know what? I think if it had been released the original date in the fall, I had, like, there was more prep for that. I got a feeling that everything got kind of rushed to figure out where to get it put. So I didn't get involved in all the like red carpet and premieres as much as I would have liked. But a part of that, I think, was they were figuring it out. As big of a movie as it wasn't as I think just because with the whole strike and the whole industry was just still in a weird space right then. So I got to attend a showing of it in LA at Warner Brothers Studios. So that was cool. And my manager was there with me. And, but other than that, I didn't really get involved in like press stuff with it very much.
What is it like watching yourself on the big screen, right? Because it's one thing to be in the scene, present, shooting, but then now you're sitting in the audience watching yourself. Like, how was that experience?
Well, I hadn't seen the film yet. That was the first time I had seen it. So, I'm like, I don't even know if I'm in the film. I mean, I assumed I was, but you never know. Like, your scenes can get cut. So I'm just like, yeah, no, I think I did. I think somebody had told me they had seen me. So that was with King Richard. I didn't know until I saw it in the theater. But with Challengers, I knew somebody had told me that they had seen it in New York, because I think it was in New York before it came to LA, like a premiere. So I knew I was in it, but it's like, oh my gosh, like what? Because I hadn't seen the film. So it's honestly a little bit of a blur. I just know my manager was really excited and really happy, and I really genuinely liked the film too, which I think, I was like, oh wow, this is I'm proud to be in this film. I'm proud to be a part of it, and I think it turned out really well.
Yeah. So a couple more things. So I noticed that you got your PhD in sports psychology from the University of Tennessee, and you also have a job too, and you work as a professor at the California State University. How is balancing? And this is something I always ask, fellow actors, because there's a lot of actors I've met. A lot of people who's been on a big screen or not. Sometimes you got to have a survival job. But for you, what is it like balancing being a professor with the acting life? Because you got to worry about auditions. You get called at the last minute on your way to the airport. You booked a major role. How is it like balancing the two worlds?
I'm very fortunate that I'm at a university that has given me a lot of flexibility in the sense of I teach a lot of online and hybrid courses. So I can, if I need to, I can put classes online. I've also, I've taught there now 10 years, and I've, built up a lot of, I think they really respect me and know that I'm going to do a good job with my classes. I teach evening classes usually as well. So for the most part, I've been able to balance it, and I've never, maybe 2 or 3 times in the whole like 10 years have I had to like last minute, cancel a class or something. For the most part, I've been able to arrange for somebody else to cover the class, or I can just put something online and still I feel like I'm doing a good job with as a professor or as a sports psychologist, but also balance the acting. And Fortunately, like I said, I'm very fortunate to be at a place that has allowed that for me to do that.
Yeah, you're lucky. Are they hiring?
Yeah,
Because I could use something like that.
I know. I mean, I'm very fortunate.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, being able to balance both lives is very important, right? Because you got to make sure everything that you have is maintained, but also making sure you have the flexibility. Hey, you know, I got this opportunity for you. So as we're talking about this, it occurred to me that I might be a podcast host, but you're also a host as well. And so you host a radio show on Power 98.5 satellite called The Actors in the Athlete Studio with your publicist, Steven. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, how did you get involved with doing something like that?
Well, Steven's had a show for I don't know how many years, but quite a while. And I was at first a guest on the show talking about my sports psych work and my mental training that I do with athletes, but also I work with a few actors. And I think the show went, it went so well as a guest that he then suggested, well, we should host a show together. And it's interesting because he brings his publicist knowledge and background. He's also which is great. But then I bring mine, it's pretty diverse background as a sports psychologist, as a professor, as an actor as well, and as an athlete. So I think all of our different perspectives, and we're very, we get along great, but we're very different personalities too. So I think it's a good balance for listeners. So it's been a lot of fun to do.
Interesting. Okay. How long you been involved with that?
I would say about a year. Yeah, about a year.
Wow. A professor, you got a radio show, you're acting, you're in the movie theaters. I'm a little jealous, man. Can I get a little bit of that shine?
Sometimes I'm ready for a break, though. I'm looking forward to the holidays and a little time off.
Yeah. So let me ask you, to do a movie like that, and you're seeing the highs of everything. How do you reward yourself? Like, do you take a vacation? Do you maybe just take a week off and just enjoy the process? Like, did you do anything to celebrate?
I think with Challengers, I was also at the time producing an indie film, and I was acting in it as a lead actor. So I really had to put all of my energy into that as soon as I got back from Challengers, because that was a huge undertaking and it's actually, I'm meeting later today with the director and who's also the producer, because we've got to edit it down from 3 hours to like maybe 2 hours. So we're going to have to cut a whole bunch of stuff, but so we're still in post-production with that. But I think I was fortunate in a lot of ways that I had, as busy as I was, it was good to like immediately jump back into something that I was pouring my whole, heart and soul and creative energy into. And, I, as an executive producer on that film, but also as the lead actor in it, that, I was wearing a lot of different hats. So I think that's where my energy just immediately went to, which was probably a good thing because I didn't really have time to like think too much about, oh my gosh, I was, being treated like a movie star on the set of Challengers, and now I'm back to indie filmmaking, which is not always glamorous, but very fulfilling as well. So I think that was the good thing, is I was working, right away.
So I do. That's actually something you made me think. I do want to ask you, because oftentimes, when you're as an actor, you get to a point in your career, right? You're for you especially, you're working on the set with Will Smith. Now you're doing this movie with Zendaya. For you, how do you center yourself, especially in a place like LA, where it's a lot of reputation, a lot, you always want to make sure you stay on top. How do you stay grounded and motivated to the point where, because oftentimes some actors will do something like that and they say, I'm never going back to the indie scene. I'd rather just wait until I get my next TV or movie role and I'll do it then. How do you go back to the roots of indie filmmaking, being on the indie circuit while still having this kind of profile?
I think a lot of actors now realize that if you're going to be working consistently, you have to be willing to work on your own content, whether that's writing, whether that's helping produce, whether that's creating content. And I actually think that's I don't know, and I can't speak for other actors, but for me, it's still very fulfilling. I mean, I've got 3 or 4 ideas for scripts in mind that I want to work on. For me, it's important to always have. I got into acting because I like the creative side of it. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I like being on a big set with famous movie stars. That's great. But I also really like the art and the craft of it. And I hope I never lose that, because I think that's, ultimately what I'm most motivated by. I'm not going to lie, money and all the rest is great, but I think that creative aspect of it really keeps me engaged with it.
So 5 years from now, you this is, challenges is done. You're looking ahead. What is the goal for you? Like, do you want to be the next big movie star? Do you want to continue working on big sets, movies, TV shows, or are you someone that maybe at some point you want to build your own, company, your own film company, do your own content, still do acting, of course, but have your own production company? What do you see yourself in 5 years?
It's that's a great question, and I think about this quite a bit. I love TV. I mean, I'm not going to turn down film roles, obviously, but I would love the experience of being a series regular. I think being on a show for multiple seasons and really building that community, uh, where you really, you get to know the other actors and it almost becomes a family, that really resonates with me. Having that community. I love film, but you shoot for a few weeks and then you're done. I think working consistently with some of the same actors over a period of time would be very, very fulfilling for me. And I haven't done that. I haven't had like a series regular role on a network show. So I'd love to see that, and within, can happen earlier than 5 years, but within 5 years. And then I think continuing to grow my kind of Jake Jensen media business, and that involves my sports site consulting, but also working with, other actors. I love the coaching and consulting part. And for me, it's continuing to balance because I really love what I do as a sports psychologist. I also love acting. So I think one of the projects I want to create is actually a show about a sports psychologist. I think that would be fabulous. Obviously, I'd love to play that role. So I think for me, it's continuing to balance, but definitely a TV series regular TV role is be kind of an ultimate goal right now.
So let me ask you, as we wrap up, 'cause I don't want to keep you too long. I know you got other things you got to do. Maybe you got to answer Zendaya's phone calls. But I want to ask you, like, as you seem very passionate about the actual process of acting. You didn't get into it for the money. So for you, at some point, because we're seeing a lot of Denzel, Will Smith, Zendaya, we're seeing a lot of actors who built that career now going kind of behind the scenes a little bit, producing, directing, getting their hands on, outside of just being in front of the camera. Is that something that you feel like you could bring not only your sports psychology expertise, but maybe just your expertise in writing and creating your own stuff? Is that something at some point you would like to do, get behind the camera?
Well, I think one thing about all of my different passions and background, I have a lot of stories in my head and a lot of experience that I can bring to different projects. So I definitely would like to incorporate my knowledge of different areas into projects. Honestly, one reason I became an executive producer on the indie film Believe that we're working on is because my managing, helping manage like schedules and people, those skills really helped out a lot, because I'm not going to lie, we didn't always have the very best communication between director and lead actress and other characters. Sometimes I really needed to step in and mediate, and you're dealing with complicated schedules. I think we shot 38 days spread out over a 2-year period. Wow. So I mean, just keeping everybody working together and willing to keep going, and there were a lot of challenges, and I think I didn't necessarily know that before I stepped in, but those skills that I have, just in terms, I work with teams, I work with coaches, it's not that much different working with actors and directors and keeping, just communication open and trying to keep everything together. I think I did a really good job of that. So I definitely have some skills, I think, that lend itself to the production side. I'm not sure I would ever produce again without a little bit more of a budget, just because money does limit you a lot. And I think we did an amazing job with what we had, but there's just sometimes you just need a little bit more money and investors and things. But I think definitely using the skills that I have and the training lends itself very well to the entertainment industry as well.
So before we set up match point, before you take us out of here, what if you could have one dream role, or maybe you already have one? I know what mine is. Do you have one dream role? Maybe it's working with alongside an actor, or maybe you want to do work with a specific company. Do you have a dream role in mind?
I think I mentioned, playing a sports psychologist. I just think we have so many procedurals about doctors and cops and detectives. But this world of sports psychology is fascinating because, you could bring in different storylines every week with just based off of like the athletes I work with. There's so many storylines there. And I think it would be a very interesting show, and you could get hopefully some really big name actors that would be willing to come in like for a guest star role for a couple weeks or for a couple episodes. So I do think that would perfectly combine my love of sports psychology and my love of acting. And I think there's just some fascinating storylines there.
Yeah. So, we've been having a great conversation. Like I said, I don't want to keep you too long. I know it's getting late. You got a lot of business to attend to, maybe a couple phone calls you got to answer. But what's going on with you? Because I noticed you have a couple things in the works right now. But any projects you have, you're maybe excited to share, or maybe I know certain things you got to keep on the wraps. But anything you want to share, anything you want to promote, I'm gonna give you the last serve.
Well, believe that we're editing down today is going to come out early next year, and I'm really excited about that because like I said, I poured my whole heart and soul into it. So, looking forward to that. And then I'm actually creating a 2-person show about a Holocaust survivor that she passed away, but we were very good friends when I was in college, and I want to capture the conversations we had in kind of a 2-person show. But it also, my relationship with this individual, and I'm not saying the name just because of looking at like rights, if I can use her legal name in the show or if I need to change it. But it inspired me to compose also some music. I'm also a pianist. And so I want to incorporate her story along with me performing on the piano in this 2-person show. And I have a couple writing partners that are helping me, and that's really one of my big projects, getting that written, and then hopefully get it on the stage in LA, and then I'd love to get it to New York sometime next year. So that's really exciting for me.
Oh, that's beautiful. If it comes to New York, let me know.
I
got my limo driver ready to bring me.
All right.
So where can people find you? Because I think, is your Instagram official Jake Jensen?
It's Jake Jensen Media, but that's my official account. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So anywhere people can find you, anything you want to plug, maybe another. I know you've been doing some media articles with big names and stuff like that to promote not only the film but your own brand. So anything you want to shout, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, Jake Jensen Media is the best way on social media: TikTok, Instagram. I did have a Twitter, but I got rid of that I'm not going to get into politics, but
right.
Not on there anymore. But Facebook too, which I keep that around because some people, especially my parents' generation, that Facebook's still what they do. So that's a great way to get hold of me. And then Stephen Kuoko is my publicist. You can always reach out to him as well. United Angels Dream is his company. But yeah, that's me. I still try to respond to direct messages on social media, and I do a pretty good job. I don't know how long that's going to last, but I do for right now respond.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of shocked. Like when you see people on social media with big, big follower accounts and stuff like that, you often I've tend to notice a lot of times you can't really message them. So I'm actually surprised you left yours open because most people are like, hey, I want to deal with people harassing me, maybe trying to get some scoops on my fellow co-stars or whatever. So that's pretty cool that you keep that line open for people to
Well,
reach out.
we'll see how long that lasts. But for right now, I do the best I can.
I get it. Trust me, I get it all the time. Just the other day, let me tell you a story. Just the other day, Tom Holland calls me up. He says, "Hey, I see you got Jake Jensen on." I say, "Yeah, I'm gonna have him on." And he says, "Hey, don't ask too many questions about Zendaya, man.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll come swing over there." And I told him, "Look, Marvel called me. I might be playing a superhero, so I don't think you want to try me." No, I'm kidding. I just made the whole up. But I get it.
Yeah,
You're
well,
booked and busy, so.
I think I'm taller than Tom Holland, but he's played a superhero, so I'm not sure I take him on.
Don't worry. He can't mess with this hair. Come on. Come
All right.
on. But Jake, it's been really truly an honor to have you on. When Steven reached out about you, I was pleasantly surprised that you wanted to take your time to come on my platform. I'm just a small New York kid who had a dream. And now the dream it's not quite there yet. Inflation is hitting it, but we getting it. We working.
Yeah.
But
I respect. I have so much respect for you, but others in the industry. We're all on our own journey, but it takes a lot of persistence and resiliency, and I love meeting people that also have whether it's acting or producing or podcasting that are willing to put themselves out there and go after it. I think that's just I'm inspired by you and others that do that. So
yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm inspired by you too. And one of the reasons why I started this was like you said, when the pandemic happened, I was sitting at home waiting for the next audition, always blowing up my agent's phone, like, hey, what's the next opportunity? And then I realized, I said, why don't I just create my own thing? And this is just like for me, I always think of things in acting terms. Like I'm learning how to be comfortable in front of the camera. So when I'm not on set or maybe auditions are slow, I'm getting the experience of being on camera, talking. I maybe have to memorize a couple points, so I always look
Yeah.
at it and I'm always working. And I think like this platform is something that I wanted to do not only just for myself, but people like you and other, people who are, going for their dreams and, making a name for themselves, whether it's acting, entertainment, sports, or whatever. And it's always great to have someone of your caliber on because it also tells other actors and show other actors if you keep working hard, you can get to that point where you'll get that role that you always wanted, or you will see that success that you always wanted. So, thank you and hats off to you, not only for your own success and everything that you're doing in your career, but, the fact that you're still humble, throughout this process, because sometimes people can get a little, a little chip on it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so shout out to you and thank you for coming on. So any final sayings maybe to your fans, supporters, your followers, any last thing you want to say before we serve this up?
Yeah, I mean, I truly do appreciate the fans that I do have. I do know there are people out there that do follow my career and are there supporting me, and I do notice that I don't always have time to comment and respond to everybody's comments and things on social media, but I do feel the support, and we need this as actors, as entertainers. It does make a difference, and so I do really appreciate everyone's support, and just keep it up.
Yes, that's right. Keep it up. That's Jake Jensen. I'm the most charismatic man. You don't have to go home, but you can hit the movie theaters. Go watch Challenges. Jake Jensen is a hardworking actor. He's getting to work with a lot of people. He's making a name for himself. Well, he already has made a name for himself. So go check him out on social media. Go follow him. Where I'm sure we'll have another chat, maybe even work together. Who knows? The atmosphere is a very big thing. So, thank you again, Jake, for taking the time out to come speak to me, maybe enlighten other people along their own acting journeys and inspire them to say, you know what, the goal is you can also work with Zendaya too. So, I said my final piece. Jake has spoke. Let's go home. Let's wrap this up. Happy New Year's, happy holidays, and we'll see you in 2025.